What's up, guys? I'm Joe, and today I'm going to talk about the seventh studio album by the rock band Linkin Park, One More Light. Now, as I'm sure you know if you're watching this, the band's been getting a lot of backlash ever since they started releasing the singles for this album. They released the song Heavy, which was pretty much everything but that, very pop sounding. And then the songs that came out afterwards just followed suit in that same kind of style. And then the band started to really come out and say, this is what the album's going to sound like. Now for me, it wasn't all that surprising because the band has always really changed their sound since the beginning. You had the new metal albums in the beginning there with Hybrid Theory and Meteora, and then right after that they already started changing their sound, going into a more alternative with Minutes to Midnight, and then A Thousand Suns was just totally out there with some electronic sounding stuff, some more experimental things. And then further on with Living Things and The Hunting Party, just really totally different sounds. So they're not a band that's ever stuck to a specific formula. So for me, I still had my hopes up, despite not totally liking the singles when I first heard them. And then overall, listening to this album a couple times, I just find that I don't think the sound is the problem, the pop sound that they're going for. I just think that the songs are pretty boring. They kind of seem to just start in one place and they end in the exact same place. I would say that is my biggest issue with the album. You know, for example, Battle Symphony. It just follows a sort of mid-tempo type beat, some kind of cool keyboard arrangements going on there. But really, there's no highs or lows to this song. It just carries on the same way throughout. Chester doesn't really sing any differently or any more forcefully as the song goes on. And that's kind of just how it stays. And a lot of the songs do that on this album. You know, Heavy doesn't really change it up throughout. Invisible doesn't really change it up throughout. The songs, they start in one place and they just go and they finish out that way. Linkin Park has always been a band that could really amp you up with their music, especially with the first two albums, but not even necessarily just those. I mean, look at Living Things. That's definitely an album that has a lot of pop elements to it, a lot of electronic sounds, but I still think it's a great album, despite it not sounding like Hybrid Theory. It doesn't have to sound like Hybrid Theory to be a good Linkin Park album, obviously, but I think it needs to have some more backbone to it, and I think that's what this album is lacking overall. There are some really good moments on it. I don't totally dislike the album. I wasn't feeling the singles at all. Until listening to them more in the context of the album, they've grown on me a little bit the more I've listened to them. I'd say definitely one of my favorites would be Good Goodbye, because you're getting Mike rapping on that. It has a nice groove to it. Chester's chorus is pretty catchy. But again, it has that kind of same issue where it just doesn't go anywhere. It just stays in the same beat goes on, no real breaks or anything. It doesn't build up the energy in a bridge or anything like that. It just kind of goes. But that is a good song. I do enjoy that song. I like Talking to Myself. That sounds kind of weird. That one stands out compared to the other stuff on this record. There's a little bit more guitar going on there. And I like the fact that it's not necessarily what you would expect from Brad playing guitar. But it's definitely a cool guitar line. It's more prominent in this song than the other songs. It's got a different beat. It's not just that mid-tempo rock beat going on. You know, you got kind of like a and it just kind of gives you a little bit more energy. So I do like that one. As far as a different kind of sound that like makes songs stand out on this album, the last two songs are pretty different. You have One More Light, which just kind of has Chester singing over a light guitar melody pretty much, and just some things placed in sporadically here and there, which I enjoy that song. But again, I would have liked to see it go somewhere more, instead of just maybe keep it like that for the first two verses and choruses, but then build it up a little bit like they're pretty much known for doing. They always find ways to build their songs up and make them explode more. A great example of that would be In Pieces off of Minutes to Midnight, which is just, starts out kind of slower, and it's building and it's building and it's building until eventually it hits this awesome guitar solo at the end. So it would have been cool to see that song maybe go somewhere. I'm not saying throw a huge guitar solo at the end of One More Light, but just to bring it up a little bit more, give it a little more energy in the end of there. And then the final track, Sharp Edges, it's cool to hear Linkin Park doing some acoustic stuff. They haven't done much of that before. It's a somewhat enjoyable track. It's not really the usual for Linkin Park. It's got more of like a Mumford and Sons kind of vibe to it. But it's not bad. And what I like is that it's different on this record because you go through a string of songs early on, and it's mostly those singles all in a row. That just really, they don't have a very definitive sound to each of them. They kind of meld together and don't really stand out for me. Maybe if some of the different sounding songs had been more placed sporadically throughout the album, so that middle section didn't feel so similar to me, I would like it a little more. Another cool moment I actually liked, the song, what's it called? The song Sorry for Now. You have Mike singing more in that, which same thing as on Invisible. But I like Chester's little rap in the middle of that song there. I thought that was different, and I like the rhythm to it, and I like the feel to it. It's one of the moments on the album that gave me a little bit more energy when I was listening to it, and a little bit more fun. I think overall, I don't dislike this album. I certainly thought I would, because I really didn't like the singles that were coming out at first. But overall, I think it is a pretty good album. I wish it was more energetic. I was watching a video with Mike, and he was saying, oh, it's kind of weird to go back and listen to Heavy now, because it sounds a whole lot different live, and so do a lot of the other songs. And I had even saw a clip of them playing Talking to Myself live, and it sounded really big and really exciting. And I was like, oh, cool, there's going to be some rockers on this album, despite the 4 singles that are mostly pop-based. But it's a lot more toned down on the album than I had heard live. So it's interesting that they wanted to experiment with the sound on the album. I commend them for doing it. I think a big argument I've been seeing a lot to people that are like, oh, I don't really like this new sound. They are a huge band. They could do whatever they want with their music, and they absolutely can. They're a band that's changed every album, as I said, so they really don't have a definitive sound. But I think with this one, I don't mind the pop elements. I think the songs are pretty much good. Just they could have used a little more oomph, you know? The band is so adamant about defending the album that I thought they would sound a little more inspired within it. Like I was saying with, Chester in Battle Symphony, he sings kind of in a lower register throughout the whole song, and it just doesn't sound like he's putting everything into it, despite how much he's out there supporting the album, telling fans to go stab themselves in the face. I would have expected maybe a little more energy, as we've come to be accustomed to with Linkin Park. But overall, the highlights that I mentioned are definitely good. I don't think it's a bad album. I'm definitely going to keep listening to it. Probably throw some songs in some playlists in the future for Linkin Park, because I definitely think they're good when they are kind of split up more among more of their energetic cuts from other albums. So I'm feeling a 2.5 out of 5 for this one. Again, not a bad album by any means, just not a very exciting one, as you would come to expect from Linkin Park. And it has nothing to do with the pop sound, the experimentation. They always do that. It's just, I think the tracks themselves could have been executed in a bit of a more energetic way. So yeah, that's it for today. Make sure to leave a like on the video if you like it.